Ms. Gina, thank you for making time for Business and Politics. Connected Women is a very interesting social enterprise, platform. I'm not sure if I'm describing it correctly, but let's take a step back and maybe tell us, if you could, what was the problem that you saw that led you into building this quite successful 80,000 member platform that we call now Connected Women. And congratulations, by the way, for your Towns Award, but we'll get to that in a minute. But what's the problem that you saw that you wanted to address?
So Connected Women has been a really long journey. Actually, I've been in the women's empowerment space for 17 years now. I actually can't believe it's been that long. And, you know, the women's networks that I've been part of have always been about solving typical problems that women face in the workplace. So it could be encouraging women to be entrepreneurs. It could be making access to work easier, you know, making sure that the workplace is more open and accessible to women. Or it could be about emerging technologies and getting women into tech, or using technology at least for their businesses. But my personal story really goes back to my roots. You know, my mom was one of the pioneering domestic workers who went to the UK back in the 70s. And, you know, she made so many sacrifices for her family just to look for opportunities. And fast forward a few decades, you know, I went to Singapore, and I still meet so many women who are in the same position, that they had to leave the country because they felt they didn't they didn't have the opportunities that they wanted at home. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to figure out a way, you know, like how can we use technology and connectivity to really bridge the gap?
Right. It seems like your mom was a major part of your life. I was watching one of your speeches on YouTube, and your family had a farm in Pampanga that was devastated by Mount Pinatubo's eruption. How did she end up in UK? I mean, and what did she do? And how old were you? Because you were going to school here already, from what I understand, right?
Yeah.
You were in high school.
So I grew up in the UK since I was 6 months old. My mom and dad actually met in the UK. My dad's British. Okay. And I was born in the Philippines only because my mom wanted to come home to deliver me.
Right.
So she took
only
me...
to have Pinatubo all of a sudden.
Well, that was actually not yet.
Okay, not yet.
So first of all, my parents went back. My dad's British, so my mom said, you know, let's go back to the Philippines.
Well, that's why you came. All right.
That's right, yeah. And then initially she was thinking that my dad could get a job in the base and that they could build something in the Philippines. This was in the 70s. So that didn't really work out because it wasn't so easy for him to get that job. So they went back when I was 6 months old. So I actually spent most of my adult life in the UK, or my young childhood.
Right.
But, you know, like many OFWs, the dream was always to come home. So they've been saving up and hoping to come back to be entrepreneurs. They came back in the 90s, or late 80s actually, to invest and start a business. And they decided that a pig farm would be good because my mom's from a small town, you know.
Right, Barak, yeah.
Yeah, of course, the Pinatubo component was unexpected, and like so many others, they lost everything, their life savings worth during that eruption. And I was there, you know, at that time I was trying to graduate high school, and my parents went back to the UK. And fortunately for us, you know, they still had other options, but it was so hard to see so many Filipinos struggling during that time of disaster.
Right. So this story is quite interesting because you met your husband and you guys ended up moving to Singapore. And there was an interesting story about what you experienced in Singapore, meeting the women there. And then again, this problem reappears that I guess gave you some ideas. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, there are still a lot of challenges that women face in all different countries, right?
Okay.
I mean, in the UK, there were a lot of challenges that women were facing in the workplace. When I moved to Singapore, I kept seeing similar problems again, especially with, you know, the burden of unpaid care, the challenge of juggling household responsibilities. A lot of the time, women will quit their job to follow the husband, for example. So I met a lot of expat women in Singapore who gave up really good careers because the husband's career came first, and often by choice, you know, not because they're forced, but because they decide that it makes more sense for the parent, the mother or the parent to take care of, or the female parent to take care of the children. But I think when I went to Singapore, it kind of hit me hard because I met so many Filipino OFWs and especially domestic workers who were there because they didn't have a choice. And in fact, our own home helper, her story was really sad because her husband passed away when her kids were small. She didn't have any choice. She really wanted to educate the kids. So she moved to Singapore, and she had been there for 8 years at that time, not even a visit home to the kids, because she was really saving every penny, you know. And so, you know, I said to my husband, it's so sad that this is really still the reality for so many Filipinos. What can we do?
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong. What you saw also, I guess maybe you connected with these women because of your own background, and you saw that there could be more that they could be doing, except that I guess there were no opportunities. And here you are, of course, with your ideas. Was it mainly to help the OFW women that you met, maybe just have more opportunities? But I saw also from your other YouTube speeches, you were also looking to help women who gave up work because of family obligations. Or was that part of the same thing that you were trying to address?
Well, with my work in the UK, I was part of a network called the Athena Network, and it was really, you know, suburban businesswomen, often women who had quit the corporate job and still wanted to do something. So they're often starting up businesses from home, you know. So that was sort of my first focus. And then when we moved to Singapore, I think the demographic was quite similar, but we also had a lot of expat women and local women as well. But I think here in the Philippines, our community grew so fast because there are really, I mean, it's so diverse, right? We have those who are overseas who are looking for something they can do when they come back. We're looking. We have those who are also in corporate jobs who are thinking there must be something else outside of this, you know, or they have a passion that they want to follow, or a purpose in life that they never had a chance to follow through on. And then we have women from more disadvantaged groups, like, you know, really in the grassroots. And I think we've had a few different models for connected women trying to solve the same problem, but at the end of the day, the ones that we really want to help are the ones that need the most help. And that's why we kind of moved some of our programs into what we call Elevate IDA, the Artificial Intelligence Data Annotation, because believe it or not, that is the one that is the most accessible.
Right, and I guess most suitable for people who are working remotely, such as those you are helping. So how did Connected Women start in Singapore while you were there, or did that formally come after you got things started, I guess, transitioning from the Athena network to seeing these new friends of yours in Singapore? How did it become formally a social enterprise?
So I was running the Athena network there, and then, but you see, it doesn't focus specifically on technology skills. It's more on women's business networking.
Yeah, so women and connecting women business leaders with other women business leaders.
That's right.
Okay.
So, you know, but I was really pushing hard for the technology adoption because, you know, technology, we can't escape it, right? We can't avoid it. Whether you love it or you hate it, it's here. So, you know, I really wanted to encourage women to use technology because I really believe it adds value. I mean, it adds value to everyone. It's a game changer. But for women, it really adds that flexibility, the ability to work from anywhere. You can really scale up a business even from home using technology. So we founded Connected Women in 2013. We had some really great partners like Google, Microsoft, other big tech companies. And the focus was really driving that technology adoption. But we were not yet looking at those from disadvantaged groups, really. It was more for business women.
Okay.
And then it sort of evolved. As I mentioned, I kept thinking about these other women who were not getting the opportunities. And I thought, you know, we can apply a similar model, but we can take it to the Philippines and we can bring it to the grassroots.
Right. And then, if I remember correctly, from watching some of the videos I saw, is it correct that you now have something like 80,000 or so women on your platform right now?
Yes, it's really grown. It really grew fast here.
Is it exclusively for Filipinos, or just any Asian women who's looking for opportunities?
It started out global, and we do have chapters in Pakistan, in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and some of those, and Singapore, of course, and some of those members are Filipino, and a lot of them are, for example, our Pakistan chapter. We have a lot of Pakistani women who are looking to solve similar problems. But, you know, the growth really happened here on the ground in the Philippines when we came back, because the original model that we thought might help solve the problem was to build a job matching platform.
Okay.
And so the idea was that Filipino women freelancers could join the platform, and then entrepreneurs from anywhere in the world or small businesses could hire from the platform.
Right. So I was going to say, I mean, were you just initially trying to see how you can tap your Athena network to maybe help the newfound friends of yours in Singapore? Was that how it started? Then it evolved into something much bigger?
Much bigger than expected.
Much bigger than expected.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why it grew. First of all, my business partner, Ruth Yu Owen, she's really a catalyst for growth. When she heard about this idea, she didn't want to do it on a small scale. I mean, she believed in the mission, and she said, we can really do this big. You know, we can make a big impact. So she came on board. It was a tech startup in the beginning, a social impact tech startup. But of course, even with tech backgrounds, it was kind of a challenging model because it's a two-sided marketplace model. So of course, you have to have the supply side and the demand side from those who will hire, as well as those who are applying for jobs, and you have to balance that all the time.
Right.
Our challenge was we had so many job seekers, like we were really inundated. That's how the growth of the community kicked in. We started with around 5,000, and it just kept doubling.
Wow.
We got to the point of around 35,000 members, and we just couldn't meet the demand on the job side because we didn't have enough resource and funding and all the rest at that time.
Right. So your background, I mean, I think I saw somewhere that you're not really a coder, or maybe you were in technology but you didn't do any coding. But what's the background, and how did AI come into the picture here? Was that the industry that you were working in, and you sort of like marry those two things with this new project of yours?
Well, I was never really a techie, you know, like I was never really a techie. I met my husband. He's the one who was in tech, and you know, through meeting him,
you followed him in Singapore.
I followed him
in Singapore, right?
That's right. And well, when we were in the UK, we had a small IT business, and we were doing really innovative projects. Like we set up the first residential Wi-Fi in the UK in one of the residential developments there. We ran a pilot for that company, and we did a lot of very early stage projects. In fact, the funny story about that, it's funny now, it wasn't funny at the time, is we set up this Wi-Fi project in a building, and the development company wanted to put it in all their new builds. And so we went to the bank because we needed around £200,000 to set this up.
Wow.
And we had a very profitable business model already organized, and the bank wouldn't lend us the money. The bank manager said, I go to work and I use my computer at work, and I come home, and if I need to do some work, I sit at my desk, and then I sit at on my sofa and watch TV. Why would I need Wi-Fi? He said, if I need to use my computer, I'll just go back to my desk again. So we were too early. That was like 2002, I think.
Well, that's a case of innovators, or sometimes they're ahead of the time. But one last question before we go on break. So out of the 80,000 or so people on your platform right now, do you know how many of them are OFWs looking for additional opportunities, and what's the proportion of just women who were professionals but had to give up their office work because they had to take care of a young family? Do you have those kind of figures?
The interesting thing is when we ran a survey, a job seeker survey, we were actually finding that a large majority are educated, the ones that are applying, right? So we had around 80% are actually graduates or postgraduates. And so this made us puzzled, because why are there so many women who are, you know, we wanted to help those in need, but actually it seems to be a small representative. But then we realized that the data doesn't always tell the truth that you need to see, right? Because of course, those who are able to complete the survey, those who are already online, able to even answer these questions, are already in a certain demographic. So, you know, we're making assumptions around that data not being really representative of the problem that we're trying to solve. And we work a lot with UN Women, with LGUs on the ground, and you know, our feel on the ground is that the majority that really need this kind of access are actually probably unbanked, probably undereducated, and don't always have the connectivity and devices that they need. So this is one of the big challenges, isn't it?
Very interesting. We'll be right back with Gina Romero of Connected Women. This is Business of Politics. We'll be back soon.